How long are you going to live? Even if the love had completely faded. I couldn't believe someone could say such thing to a wife who had just been told she had only 6 months to live. I was beyond angry and shocked, utterly dismayed. What? The one with a limited time left is you know? What? My name is Julie. I believe aging gracefully is an eternal theme for both men and women. I'm 60 years old, but I haven't forgotten to dress fashionably as a woman. Not for my husband. When I see myself in the mirror, with my hair, makeup, and outfit all perfectly in place, my spirits lift. At work, people are surprised to hear I'm 60 and say, "You don't look like 60, which is always nice to hear. My marriage has grown cold, and I often question why I ever married this man. I work hard in the editorial department of a comic book magazine. My husband isn't a big earner, yet he opposes me continuing to work. He says, "Men hunt, women do housework," with a straight face, and all I can do is sigh. It's not just a throwback to the early 1900s, it's like he's time traveled here from the days when the Pilgrims first arrived. Or even the primitive era, considering his views on hunting. In the animal kingdom, it's the female lions who do the hunting, and I'd love to tell him that. I find great satisfaction in my job, advising and brainstorming with young, aspiring comic artists about attractive characters and interesting stories. Being in your 60s today is young. But my husband is different. How long do you plan to keep working? You're already 60. I get angry, but since arguing never changes his mind, I always end up backing down. I won't forgive you if you neglect housework because of your job. My husband truly believes housework is a wife's duty. Doesn't he watch the news? He not only believes men are superior to women but also has a weak spot for young, beautiful women, which is, in a way, the worst combination. I graduated from college and got my current job. I dreamed of becoming a comic artist until high school, but gave up due to lack of drawing skills. That's why I want to support those chasing their dreams. Before I knew it, I was too engrossed in my work and turned 40. Family suggested a marriage arrangement, and I dreamed of married life. Marriage is a significant decision that can change your life, so you mustn't rush into it. But fearing I'd stay single forever if I missed this chance, I agreed to the arrangement and met my husband, who was 41 at the time. Back then, he hid his true nature, behaving like a kind gentleman. We were both over 40, and I had no intention of quitting my job, so we don't have children. My parents, in their 80s, unlike my husband, are sensitive to the times and never say, "We want to see grandchildren." There are many women who can't have children even though they want them. My parents know that saying, "Show us grandchildren," or "Don't you have kids yet," can be a burden. Lately, my husband has been frequently checking his cell phone and having secretive calls. I thought it might be an affair, but not feeling angry about it probably means my love for him has completely cooled off. One day, my mother-in-law, Susan, who lives nearby, came to visit our house. Her husband passed away 3 years ago, and now she lives alone. She's 85 but always carries herself with a firm presence, and even my husband can't seem to outdo her. It's not out of respect, probably more for her money. That old lady is so stingy. She must have around $200,000 in savings. I'm an only child, so I'll get the inheritance. Can't she just kick the bucket soon? I couldn't believe my ears hearing such a thing. There are things shouldn't be said. I have to be nice to her now, even if it's a lie. Otherwise, she might write something crazy in her will like donating everything to some facility. At that moment, she appeared from the next room. "Sorry for being stingy. Mom, you were here?" My husband turned pale and took his anger out on me. "Idiot. Why didn't you tell me she was here? Be quiet. Stop yelling, you're disturbing the neighbors." There was no defending his bad-mouthing, so he just hung his head in silence. While my husband hid in the bathroom, Susan asked me, "How long have you and Kevin not been getting along? It seems like more than just a rough patch." I just smiled wryly and said, "You can tell? Julie. If it becomes unbearable, remember divorce is an option. There's a term in Buddhism, the suffering of encountering people one loathes. The agony of being with someone you don't want to see is unbearable. It must be hard living with someone you dislike. Don't worry about me. Her kindness touched my heart. She's so knowledgeable and cultured, hard to believe she's related by blood to him. Maybe my husband really is a time traveler from the primitive era. This year, he underwent a physical examination at work and apparently, there were issues. Maybe his unhealthy lifestyle is catching up to him at 61. He often comes home late, sometimes drunk. He says he's been out drinking with colleagues, but I know he frequents strip clubs. Never underestimate a housewife's intuition. He had a follow-up examination at the hospital, and one day, they called me. The doctor said, "Before telling your husband, there's something I'd like to discuss with you." It felt like a scene from a TV drama, and I had a bad feeling. Hearing the doctor's words at the hospital, I was shocked. 6 months to live? Hearing my husband only had 6 months left, a whirlwind of emotions hit me. Surprised at my lack of shock, feeling a bit sorry for him, and even a sense of relief, which made me feel heartless. A normal wife would be devastated to hear her husband has only 6 months left, but there I was, almost acting. Could there be a mistake? Please be prepared. Whether to tell him depends on his personality, and you know him best. What do you mean by personality? If he's the type to despair and become reckless, it's dangerous to tell him suddenly. If he's optimistic and strong-willed, it might be better to tell him. I knew if my husband heard he only had 6 months left, he'd fall apart. But it's not good for him to keep going to strip clubs and drinking, unaware of his condition. I returned home with a heavy heart, but decided it was best to tell him. That night, when my husband came home, I said, "There's something important we need to talk about." "What is it?" "Don't beat around the bush. I'm busy, unlike you." "I'm busy too, you know. You just make yourself busy. If you don't like being busy, quit your job." Really, it's a man's shame to have his wife work. It's like saying I don't earn enough. I was taken aback by his outdated views. He seems unaware that most households these days have both partners working, and there are fewer stay-at-home spouses. Today, I went to the hospital. The hospital? Please listen carefully and stay calm. Stop beating around the bush. I'm busy, you know. I was so frustrated, I blurted it out. There's only 6 months left to live. My husband looked at me seriously for a few seconds, then inexplicably laughed and hurriedly covered his mouth. 6 months left to live? Yes. Calm down, and don't despair. Idiot, who's going to despair? Don't flatter yourself, don't underestimate me. His response was odd, maybe he was shocked. Well, it's like reaping what you sow, maybe due to bad behavior all this time. I was surprised he was aware of it. That's why you should cut down on drinking. Shut up. Drinking is part of a man's job. You women think it's all fun and games. I'll continue going out to drink. You better stop. Come straight home after work. Then he smiled broadly. Wait, don't tell me, you want more time together because there's only 6 months left? I couldn't dream of such a thing, but I reluctantly played the part of a good wife. Of course, I want more time, just the two of us. Don't be stupid, I'm not that free. Darling. He interrupted me as I tried to have a serious conversation. Enough, this conversation is over, we're done. Time is money, and I can't afford to waste it with you. I couldn't believe he could say such hurtful things so casually. But maybe it was his way of dealing with the shock, so I didn't say anything more. Worried he might be upset, I peeked into his study. He was talking to someone on the phone. Miley, I shouldn't say it's good news, but my wife was told today at the hospital. She has 6 months left to live. I didn't ask for the disease. But given it's about life expectancy, it must be terminal cancer or something. I was initially confused about what he was saying. Just bear it for half a year. There's life insurance, and my mom is 85, so her time is probably coming soon. Once my wife is gone, Miley, let's live together. I want to start my life over. I was shocked. My husband was terribly mistaken. But hearing his conversation with this Miley woman, my anger reached its peak. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. There's a limit to how much you can mock someone. His words about his own mother were unforgivable. In a chilling voice, I muttered to myself. So, live with your misunderstanding. Though it'll only be for half a year. Since I told him about the life expectancy, there were many days when he didn't come home at all. He even lies about being on business trips when he's actually going on vacation. It's shocking. He's started dressing flashily, buying expensive watches, and seems to be splurging daily. He's been buying a lot of gifts too. He's not wealthy. Maybe he's counting on the insurance money after I'm gone. That's the end of him as a person. 3 months have passed since the life expectancy announcement. Seeing my husband looking pale, I asked him, "Are you feeling unwell?" "Recently, I've been feeling lethargic and get tired easily. I even get out of breath just climbing the stairs at the station. Maybe it's just my age. You should cut back on alcohol." "Shut up. I've told you, drinking is part of my job for entertaining clients. If you can only say depressing things, then just drop dead." I was furious but deliberately chose not to argue back. A nagging woman is the worst. You and that old hag should both drop dead. Susan was standing right behind my husband when he said that. "Old hag, are you referring to me?" "Whoa, you scared me." My husband glared at me menacingly, but Susan asked him again. "Are you talking about me?" "Of course not, I've never called you an old hag. There's this annoying boss at my company named Jack." "Jack, huh?" My husband couldn't face Susan's suspicious gaze and looked down. He seemed annoyed that I hadn't told him about Susan's presence, and he left for somewhere. 4 months have passed since the life expectancy announcement. My husband coughs more frequently, takes more sick days from work, and, although he used to have high blood pressure, it's low now. He gets dizzy from low blood pressure and almost fell down the stairs once. It amazes me that he still goes on his business trips. Is he choosing to spend his final moments not with his wife, but with his mistress? However, the idea of him playing around with his mistress, thinking his wife only has a few months to live, makes me lose all sympathy for him. He complains of cold hands and feet even on warm days, and says he's in pain everywhere. If you're not feeling well, you should decline the business trips. Don't meddle in my work matters. The trips are my only pleasure. I mean, they are important tasks that only I can do. Should I call your office and ask your boss to excuse you from the trips? Predictably, my husband exploded in anger. "If you dare do that, I'll never forgive you." I struggled to suppress a laugh. I felt pity for my self-inflicted husband but was torn about telling Susan the truth. She has been kind to me since the beginning of the marriage. Just then, there was an unexpected visitor. It was a young woman I had never seen before. "May I help you?" "My name is Miley." "Nice to meet you." Miley, could she be my husband's mistress? Boldly coming to my house, I instinctively braced myself. I'll get straight to the point. "Please release Kevin, your husband, from this marriage." "Release?" I was genuinely surprised during our conversation. Even from a woman's perspective, Miley was astonishingly beautiful, delicate, well-styled, and had an excellent sense of fashion. I couldn't understand why such an attractive woman would be involved with my husband. He's not wealthy, so it couldn't be for his money. And it surely couldn't be true love. So, was this some kind of scam? "Kevin is suffering, and I think it's stress-related. Could you please divorce him?" I replied with a wry smile to her audacious request. "What you're doing is against the law. Isn't it rather improper to directly ask the legal wife for a divorce?" But she wasn't deterred. "Isn't it possible to meet the love of your life after getting married? It's foolish to be bound by the formality of marriage in such a case. After all, we only have one life to live." I realized something then. Fearing that continuing the conversation with this young woman would make me lose my composure and possibly lead to an outburst. I ended the talk with a smile. My husband has already been liberated from this world. Whether he's gone to heaven or fallen to hell, I don't know, as I'm not the queen of hell. She looked momentarily puzzled but then laughed brightly. "Queen of hell? You're funny, ma'am." "I'm not funny at all. By the way, how old are you?" "I'm 29. 29, still in her 20s, made my head spin. A woman 30 years younger than him. I couldn't hide my surprise. If you don't mind, may I ask about your job? He visited the place where I work. He's incredibly kind and truly a good person. Are you genuinely in a relationship with my husband out of pure affection? Of course. Kevin is tough and skilled. Stop. I glared at her with a smile. If you say more, I might just strangle you. It's not funny at all, really. Miley looked at me silently for a few seconds and then said, "Meeting you today for the first time, I'm honestly surprised. You're so different from what I imagined." Did my husband badmouth me? Say I'm like a witch? Miley laughed heartily. He never said anything bad about you. I just didn't expect you to be such a wonderful person. While I'm not flattered to be praised by a mistress, Miley didn't seem like a bad person. I couldn't bring myself to like her, but with a woman like her being kind to him, no wonder that fossilized fish of a man was smitten. True love, huh? But soon, your feelings will be truly tested to see if they're genuine or not. What do you mean? Her puzzled tilt of the head was charming. I harbored no regrets about my husband who lost his heart to this little devil, but I felt a slight sympathy for her. It's been exactly 6 months since the life expectancy announcement. My husband, looking pale, took another day off work today, but seeing me return home healthy, he gave a mocking look. How long are you planning to live? Even though my love for him had faded, I couldn't believe someone could say such a thing to a wife who was told she had only 6 months to live. I contained my anger and maintained my composure. Really, you and my mother are both tough as nails. Leave your mother out of this, please. Then, my husband suddenly exploded in anger. Leave out? Who are you talking to? Oh, I see, you think you have nothing to lose since your time is short. Well, let me be frank before you drop dead. Marrying you was the biggest mistake of my life. The unspeakable final words. My husband had finally crossed the line. I felt a surge of anger so strong it seemed to hit the ceiling and blurted out. Is that your last will? Last will? Wait, you haven't written any weird will, have you? Have you written a will? It's been half a year since your life expectancy announcement. What nonsense are you spouting? The life expectancy is yours. Have you finally gone mad in your final stage? I was beyond anger and shock, completely dumbfounded. What? The life expectancy is yours. What? For a moment, my husband's face turned serious and he froze, but then he scoffed. You should be hospitalized. We're not even on the same page. Go to the hospital today. With that, my husband retreated to his study. The next morning, my husband collapsed inside our house. I immediately called an ambulance, informed Susan, and then headed to the hospital. After the examinations were completed and my husband learned the truth, he was furious. In front of the doctors and nurses, he lashed out at me. Why didn't you tell me something so important? I did tell you, 6 months ago. Don't lie, the life expectancy was yours. It seemed he remembered our conversation from 6 months ago. At that time, I hadn't specified who received the life expectancy announcement. So, you took advantage of my misunderstanding, you devil. We're in a hospital, please keep quiet. Shut up. You're all irrelevant. You too, are you all in this together? He pointed at the doctor and nurse, becoming entangled. It was utter chaos, my husband in a frenzied state. That's enough, I won't stay in a hospital that sets me up like this. I'll be assassinated. You're overreacting. Shut up, I can't trust any of you. He brushed off the nurse's attempt to restrain him and stormed out of the ward. I had no intention of stopping him. I apologized to the doctor and nurse on behalf of my husband for his rude outburst and returned home. A few days later, my husband returned home, pale as a ghost. After telling Miley the truth, it seemed she broke up with him. I guess it was too much for her, as I thought of Miley's face. It was bad enough she broke up with him, but it turned out Miley was married. It's not uncommon for girls from the strip club to lie about being single, even though they're married. Miley's husband was in prison and had been released recently. Caught cheating, Miley had told her husband about Kevin. Help me. He's threatening to throw me into the sea alive. What can I do against someone that's scary? How can you be so calm about your husband's crisis? What a thing to say. Plan to flee overseas? I don't have the money. He had apparently spent all his savings, counting on the insurance money, in 6 months. Frequent trips, or rather vacations with Miley, probably meant he paid for everything, so it's no wonder his money disappeared quickly. Please, can you lend me some money? I don't have any. I responded coldly, dismissively. Then borrow it from my mother. She won't lend me any, that stingy old hag. Borrow it from Jack. Ah! My husband was startled and glared at me. That's why you should tell me when she's here. Were you doing it on purpose? You're the one who only has half a year left. Oh wait, that was 6 months ago, so your time must be coming soon, right? Even I was taken aback by her cold words. My husband was utterly lost at his mother's unbelievable line. Is that what a mother says to her own son? How many times have you said that to your own mother? Unable to respond to this retort, my husband remained silent. Kevin. Apologize to Julie with your heart. Then we can talk. Stubborn to the end, my husband shouted. This is my house. Get out. I don't want to see your faces anymore. Let's go, Julie. What? Kevin. I'm disappointed in you. I am severing our mother-son relationship. I will live with my daughter. Daughter? My husband has no siblings. As I was shocked, thinking she might have a hidden child, Susan said. Julie is my daughter. Do you have a problem with that? Mom. Kevin was dumbfounded by the unexpected words. I felt like crying, but somehow held back. Susan and Kevin are blood-related, actual mother and son. If Kevin and I divorced, Susan and I would become strangers. Yet, she calls me her daughter. I have felt that since we got married. Susan has always treated me like her own daughter. Her love was genuine. Kevin, losing his color, glared at his mother. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm your real son, and she's just your daughter-in-law. There's no question about who's more important. Of course, I would choose Julie, my real daughter, without a second's hesitation. A man who cheats and acts so nonchalantly is not my son. Moved by Susan's firm words, Kevin remained silent and walked like a ghost into his study. I quickly packed my bags and moved to live with Susan. Fortunately, I had a job, and as my husband said, Susan had savings. Following her advice, I officially divorced and completely severed ties. Self-inflicted as it may be, I wonder if Kevin is okay. I'm afraid of myself for thinking whether the thugs or his time will come first. I'm more worried about Miley's safety. I don't know whether this was the right decision. Marriage is living together with a stranger, so love is indeed the most important thing. When love fades, the collapse is swift. Was this marriage a mistake? I think not. I was able to meet Susan. We continued to live happily together, like a real mother and daughter. My parents were initially shocked, but after hearing about the tumultuous 6 months, they quickly understood. Now, I am happy. Happiness is not something given by others. It's something you must earn for yourself. Men often promise the parents of their fiancés, I will definitely make your daughter happy. But happiness is not something a man can give. The source of happiness is within oneself. In my heart lies infinite potential. I believe in my strength and will live by it.